Welcome to the continued podcast adventures of Superhero Speak.
But I think many of the people that love this character and that love superheroes in general have used these stories as inspiration to say, you know what, I'm going to do something good in the world. I'm going to make a difference like my hero when I was a kid.
That is my fondest memory of it, because when you're doing comic books, you want them to affect people, right? You want people to care. You want to strike emotions, and I knew that Clone Saga was striking a lot of emotions.
Can you imagine Pulp Fiction starring Goofy and Mickey Mouse?
I can totally imagine that.
I'm sure somebody's written that one
quarter
too.
pounder with cheese in France, Mickey? What? Boy, ale with cheese, Mickey. Yeah, I can totally.
See?
I would watch the hell out of that movie.
Yes, I gladly sacrifice up my progeny to you, almighty Marvel beast.
But Neil Adams is somewhere going, it's my time.
How do you measure success? Hey everyone, and welcome to Superhero Speak. I'm your host, Dave.
But we're on a podcast. I have to talk, Dave. You just told me not to talk. What am I? I'm John. Hi, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, what have you. Merry Yule.
Yule, oh my God.
I'm just JD.
You're just plain old JD.
That's it.
So how is everyone doing this week? How are you, JD?
Good. A lot of wrestling going on this time of year. Took place in another big, took third in another tournament with a bunch of nationally ranked teams. I had one of my best kids got laid out with a illegal headbutt that wasn't called, so he went unconscious. That's always fun. So who knows when we get him back. And then I had another kid who couldn't wrestle because he had ingrown toenails that had to be removed. And at first I wanted to laugh, and then I saw his feet, and I'm like, oh, okay, let's get that done now. So
how do you let that go so far that you need
They're kids, man. They're high school kids.
Yeah.
I at this point, I've been doing this so long, I hear things and I just go, okay. It never ceases to amaze me. Whatever. So, not bad being down with a couple men, but we did solid. Pretty happy.
Well, and you, John?
Yeah, well, I just wrapped all the gifts for all my nephews and all my family members and all. And I got one more day tomorrow to clean up everything, and then I'm going on a world tour. Basically, I'm going to stay at 3 different people's houses over the next 3 days. Because, the holidays are supposed to be restful.
The John O'Grady World Tour.
Yeah. Which is mostly in Connecticut. So,
Well.
But
anyway. The Connecticut tour.
Yeah. But, that and work is still dealing with a lot for shell crap. So, even though I'm technically on vacation, I apparently am banking extra days for next year that I can just take whenever I want because, they just won't leave me alone. Good old freaking work. So yeah, not bad.
That's weird. I've had the complete opposite with work today. I'm supposed to have my one-on-one with my boss, and he didn't show up. So
he's on vacation.
That's what I think. I think he started his vacation early because I know he's out tomorrow and the rest of the week. But
good for him.
Say hi to everybody.
Hi.
Okay.
Hi.
That's
Merry Christmas.
That's what happens when you look at the camera and don't watch where you're going.
Yes.
You fall backwards over stuff in Dad's room. Sorry.
If he wants to be an actor, he's got to learn to hit his mark and not fall over.
He does not want to be an actor. He does, unfortunately, want to be a professional wrestler. That was the conversation in the car. She goes, I don't think I want to be a pro wrestler anymore. I think I want to be Spider-Man. And if I catch this is exact words. And if I catch a spider and put it in a jar and pour chemicals on it, and if I get it to bite me, I think I could do it.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Oh my God. So did he go with you?
Oh yeah. Well, I went twice. I went Thursday night with my buddy, and because we always went to see movies together. This is before this whole thing. We had not been to see a movie since Dr. Sleep in February of 2020. So our first movie together in over almost 2 years was Spider-Man. And then Andy got his COVID shot yesterday, his second COVID shot. So as a reward for being brave, we went and saw Spider-Man.
Wow. So you're all ready to go because you saw things that maybe John and I missed.
I did. There's one I'm going to be able to say in particular. Interesting. But yes, so I saw it twice.
Okay, cool. Yeah, other than that, I don't really have anything going on. I got the last of the Christmas gifts got delivered today, so I can start wrapping and then figure this all out. the holidays.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Which reminds me, for those listening, as always, as we do every year, we'll be taking the next 2 weeks off so we can spend time with our families and loved ones and acquaintances.
Wish my work would take time off. Ugh.
Well, I'm off, so.
My sister's getting married today in Florida.
How? Huh? Why would you do that?
Why would I don't know. She said, "Are you coming?" And we said, "No, we're not going."
On Christmas?
Especially because they're already married, but she didn't get enough attention paid to her when she had the first super spreader event in Vegas, and now she wants to have. And so my brother, it was a big thing with the family. So my brother is in Wisconsin, I'm here in Illinois, and we're not in Florida.
This is like a game in Clue. Who had the super spreader event? It was your sister in Florida with Omicron.
Well, but she's already married. That's the weird thing.
I know, Dave.
Were you at the first one?
No, it was in Las Vegas. When pre everything, and everyone who went, by the way, had COVID, and one of the people wound up in the hospital in intensive care. So, a good choice on my part. And you could just do it at the courthouse, but no, we have to be all about me.
Yeah, we all have that crazy member of the family, right?
You're gonna listen to the show, so I can bury her all I want. So
I see.
Family.
So, oh my God. So one of the things, we don't have social media madness per se this week.
Well, except for like all the stats on Spider-Man No Way Home.
Right. Well, we'll get to that. But I did want to mention one thing related to Spider-Man and social media. I was, you know how you're watching YouTube and videos keep playing, blah, blah, and this one popped up, and I don't remember who it was, and started talking about how Tom Holland wants to step down as Spider-Man. And I'm like, what is he talking about? He just signed a contract to do 3 more movies.
Yeah, I thought that was a rumor like months ago, wasn't it?
People just make things up so they get.
So hold on. So here's the thing. I did look into it. He did an interview with People magazine where he said he would like to take some time off from acting so he could start a family. And
with Zendaya, well, yeah,
good-looking kids.
If you're dating Zendaya, you want some time off to spend with her. I mean, geez, and her with him too.
And he said that he enjoys playing Spider-Man and he'll keep playing him as long as people want him to play him, but that at some point he sees himself stepping away to allow other people to be Spider-Man, And it's like, okay, but that's not him saying he's going to stop playing Spider-Man right now. And I'm like, wow, the internet sucks.
It does. It's horrible. It's a freaking cesspool, man.
Yeah, I know. It's just I don't get that. It's easily verifiably false. Yet, and the guy in the video is not stating any sources or anything like that. He's just like,
well, no, he's looking for clicks, just like everybody else.
There's no accountability on YouTube.
Dude, there's no accountability with the big news networks even. They look for clicks. It's all clicks now.
This is true.
Yes, very true. So I just wanted to get that off my chest. But
yeah,
other than that, I haven't been very active on social media. Sorry, people. There is a little bit when we get to the review. But if you want to be a part of social media madness, you want to follow us, here's our good friend D Square to tell you more about how to follow us in social media madness.
Coming in on a motorcycle.
Enjoying the show? Want to be part of social media madness? Make sure you are following superheroespeak.com, where you can find all of the show's social media links at the top of the page. While you're there, you can check out old episodes of the podcast as well as some other great content. Check the site often, because we are posting some great comic reviews as well as comic book and movie news content every day. Make sure and follow us on Twitter at SuperheroSpeak. And while you're there, check out the rest of the Geek World All-Stars Podcast Network. You can follow them at stars_geek. The Geek World All-Star Podcast Network include great programs such as the Pop Prison Power Podcast, Cult 45, So Wizard, Fans on Patrol, the Gorilla Brain Podcast, and of course, Superhero Speak. Search for hashtag GWAllstars. You will not be disappointed. Now it's back to Dave and the boys on Superhero Speak.
Thanks for that, Don. Don't forget to check out the Omega Level Nerds podcast, available on YouTube and wherever podcasts are available. On that note, we'll take our first commercial break and we'll be right back.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
All right, we are back. We only have a couple news articles real quick to talk about. The first one, JD, you brought to our attention, which is Marvel is changing the Punisher logo, which is one of the dumbest things I've seen.
I don't know if I agree with that.
Okay.
Well,
I mean, basically they added horns to it, so they made it look like they made it look like Mephisto's skull.
It looks like Punisher Extreme.
I think
there you go.
Well, I think if you looked at the thing, Punisher's going to be doing stuff with the hand in Jason Aaron's run, so I think it's more aligned with like what the hand is. Like I think it's a merging of logos. So I get.
Well, they've also come out and said it's a temporary change. So
yeah, I mean it's what it is, and I kind of understand. I mean, like it has been co-opted by people that it's like the Pepe the Frog thing, right? Like that thing was not created to be a alt-right symbol, and the guy who created it's like I'm going to take this back, and he failed. You know, when symbols get co-opted, like the swastika, for example, was never supposed to mean.
It was a peace sign originally.
It was, and then it changed. So I mean, like I kind of get Marvel going. You know, we don't like where this is going nowadays, so maybe we should change it. And then some people be like, "Well, you're giving in," but at the same time, like it's also by not doing anything, aren't you just saying yes? This is what we agree with.
No,
well, they
I don't believe that.
Haven't they had issues where Frank Castle was actually talking about what it meant to him, what he was, just to fight against this alt-right assimilation of the symbol?
They did, but you know, I mean, that's the thing with like symbology, right? Once something is like incorporated by someone, it no longer becomes yours; it becomes theirs.
Yeah, I know, but like Pepe the Frog, right? That was like completely unknown until the alt-right took it over, right? But Frank Castle's skull symbol. That's way more known for him than it is
exactly,
for
them. And that's what I'm getting at. Like, so a couple people wore it, but like I don't think it was co-opted the way Pepe was. Like, you see a couple people wear a T-shirt, it doesn't mean anything. Like, I think they're making a bigger deal out of it than it is. You know, it feels like a much different situation. You know,
I don't know if it's still big, but it's stupid. It's stupid. Like it's goddamn COVID time stupid. You know, I
think we have a problem of giving
stupid. Like
I think we have a problem of giving credence to the vocal minority on the internet, and
we do.
Yeah,
but we still have to deal with them. That's the problem.
That is the problem. And like it's also a thing too, where people are making merchandise with your IP. And like, it's so funny when lawyers can't do anything to stop this because it is so widespread. Like there are people that are going to knock off bumper stickers and T-shirts and all those things. And like, they're still doing it. So, I mean, it's like at some point you lose control of it.
It's because they're such small outfits. Like if they were a larger outfit, the mouse would be all over that. I mean,
but Greg's work ends up on stuff all the time. You know, I mean, and it's not his IP, but it's his work, you know, and he's not getting a dime for it. So,
that happens. Yeah. My hair looks great. I got a haircut before the show, and I'm very happy with it. Sorry, this is the first time I've actually looked at it in the show. I'm like, wow, this is a good haircut. Sorry.
Oh my goodness,
it does look
good
suave,
haircut. Yeah, great clips, baby.
The last time I came back from Great Clips, like one side of my hair was an inch shorter than the other. It was ridiculous.
I know. No, I think the lady did a pretty solid job. I'm reasonably happy with it. So,
wow, that is a weird derail.
I can't help it. I'm looking at me and I'm like, hey,
you're good looking.
Hey, I'm all right. Beard's starting to fill in nicely, you know?
I tried to get a haircut before, but like everybody's booked up. So,
we waited 45 minutes in the car because they told us to get out. So, you know.
Yeah, that's the other thing. You can't wait in places right now.
And with the 5-year-old, it's easier for him to wait in the car because he's insane.
Okay, we're on a time limit. We have to.
Right? Okay. So Frank Castle's now wearing Mephisto's skull. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. Actually, it almost looks like Serta, but okay.
Oh, okay. That works too. All right, moving on.
Move along.
Kevin Feige and I can't think of her name, in charge of Spider-Man over at Sony.
Amy Pascal. Yeah.
Amy Pascal have both confirmed they are currently working on Spider-Man 4.
That's because they like money, and this is making all the money.
Allow me to speak for the planet and say, good.
Yes.
Yeah, you think so?
Good. Happy.
We'll get to it. I'm really curious where they're going to go after this.
Me too. I have ideas, but
so do I.
It's interesting. I'll save my thoughts on this till we actually do the review, but good. This was, it's clearly working.
Yes. And that article actually came out before the movie hit, but
because they knew.
Yeah.
Because they knew.
Yeah, because they can look at pre-sales now and see how much it makes before
Google
it actually
Trends.
opens.
Google Trends is also a big thing that's helping people know like where the talk is, and there's not like a direct one-to-one correlation between Google Trends and like tickets sold, but there was enough Google Trend, positive marks in Google Trends to tell them, okay, we got something here.
And I know we're going to talk about this after the break, but like just consider how much money it's made now, and that's with a huge asterisk next to it, because the number of people that still don't feel safe going into the theaters, number of theaters that still haven't opened back up yet, like the
John,
ticket sales for this are just.
John, you know me, man. I'm pretty where I lean on most of these things. I took the kid to see this at 10:45 in the morning, on a Monday, thinking it was going to be a pretty empty theater.
Yep.
I was wrong. It wasn't sold out, but in an IMAX, it was thick. Very, very thick for Monday morning.
And again, that is still with the idea that there are a lot of people that didn't go to this because of COVID and all that. That it's an appreciable amount. It's like, I don't know. We'll talk about it when we'll finish that off with the box office when we talk about that. But so yeah, of course they're going to do a Spider-Man 4. You kidding me? If COVID ends, the Spider-Man 4 is going to make like
Spider-Man 4. Aren't we really talking about Spider-Man 9?
Well, yeah, now we are.
That's basically what we got.
Yeah.
Well, is that including the Spider-Verse stuff? Because
Spider-Man 10?
Yeah.
I have theories on that. I have thoughts on that too.
Well, technically, by the time that comes out, it'll be Spider-Man 11, right?
Very possible. Well, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because there's the Spider-Verse 2 is.
Sony just makes Spider-Man movies now. This is what they do.
Well, in conjunction with Marvel, because let's face it, if it wasn't for the Marvel stuff,
they'd be screwed. I'm glad they all got along then and said, you know what, we're better together than we are separate. So you can't have s'mores without the chocolate and the marshmallow.
Yeah, this is true.
This is very true. All right, and finally, because we've talked about this before, and I found this very interesting. So not Stanley Lieber, what's his brother's name?
Larry
Lieber and the Ditko family and all have filed a petition with the Supreme Court of the United States we talked about they're suing for the copyright of the characters, right? Because they want to revert them back to the estates.
Yeah.
And the thing that made them decide to do this is there's currently a case for the Supreme Court about the Game of Life. And the original creator of the Game of Life, the family of the creator of the Game of Life, say that it wasn't a work for hire. He created the game, and then I guess Hasbro bought it. But the argument from Hasbro is that so many people contributed to it that it's not the original game he presented. So it makes it a work for hire. So that is currently on the docket for the Supreme Court, and they're going to decide in January if they're going to hear this case or not. And based on that, if the family wins, then that gives precedent to the creator's family. So I found it very fascinating. What do you guys think?
I think everyone wants a big check, and everyone deserves a big check, quite frankly. I mean, Disney has it. They should be writing checks to the Ditko and Lieber estates for, the rest of time. Same as the reason Warner should be writing them to the families of Siegel and Schuster and Finger for the rest of time. That's fair. That's, in my humble opinion, that's fair. Because, let's say the Liebers get the rights to whatever, who knows what they're fighting for this time. What are they going to do with them? Because you're not going to get what you think you're going to get.
Right.
So the money, the power is with Marvel Disney, right? So cut them a check. That's what they want. Just cut them a check.
Yeah.
Cut him a big check. Cut him, make him happy. Like you can afford it. I saw the box office returns. You can afford it.
I agree. I think that's ultimately how this is going to end. But I'm curious
it's tricky though. I mean, like I am fully behind creators getting paid for their work, right? And for families to, benefit off of that as well. But there is a problem with the fact that literally Disney is driving all of the copyright law. And the fact that no senator or statesman is ever going to vote against the mouse becoming, it becomes open source or
public. Oh my God, public domain.
Yeah, public domain, right? Nobody's ever going to vote against that. But the problem being that means that there's other things like music and stuff that Sony and Warner are going to be able to keep forever. And that we'll never ever be able to see that without paying for it constantly again and again and again and again and again.
Right. I get that, and that's one of the things I keep thinking about too. Like, John, you and I write software for a living.
Yeah.
What about the guy who created Gmail? What if his turns around and says, you know what? I deserve all the money Google's made off of Gmail.
Boom. Right.
Yeah.
I'm of the mind that creators are. The 20th century was really about creators being manipulated by big corporations to cycle away creations, right? That was the precedence that was set in the 20th century. In the 21st century, now that stuff is coming up, they're going to have to, if these companies want these things, precedence is being set. I'm very curious to see what the Supreme Court does with this Game of Life thing. But again, Parker Brothers, comics and stuff like that, like narrative stuff is different than a board game, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
What Spider-Man needs to exist as Spider-Man, right? So Marvel and Disney are the people that are in control of that. Make them pay, right? They have the money, right?
And even though a game can change, Spider-Man, they've tried to change him and they can't because idea.
He's not the same character that Steve, like if you look at Amazing Fantasy 15, it is not that character, right? It is not the one that Steve Ditko essentially created from notes from Jack Kirby. Right, which again too is Steve Ditko doesn't get to Spider-Man without those original Jack Kirby notes. So I mean, like the actual creation of these characters isn't so cut and dry. Like this isn't like the creation of Zorro or something like that.
And that's
Ranger.
That's the argument with that Parker Brothers or whoever it is making is that because so many hands are in creating this, it's not a solo person. It is
agreed.
A work for hire thing.
It is a work for hire thing. But the thing is, these work for hire contracts were made in bad faith. So I think every single one of those people who contributed should be paid. Like if you have taken a hand in creating something that has had that kind of impact, your heirs should be paid. And what's the term? Like I wanted to say ad nauseum, but that's not right. Like they should be paid. They should just be paid in perpetuity. There we go.
Yeah.
In perpetuity. Like those things should exist because these companies have made billions based on them and they can afford to take care of the people that created them because that is fair.
Well, and Larry Lieber actually worked on the comics that was in the newspaper.
Mm-hmm. He was Stan's other guy, right?
Yes.
Like he wrote a lot of stuff as Stan. So he does have, I believe he wrote a lot of Thor stuff too. So, I mean, like there's a lot that he contributed to the pool, right? And Disney should understand that in this, like contracts are meant to be challenged. Like I could say they're meant to be broken, but I mean, contracts are challenged all the time. And the legal system is kind of an organism that breathes and changes. And like with the Supreme Court, interpretations change all the time. Like let's look at Brown versus the Board of Education. That is not the way we interpret things today, right?
Yeah,
so things always change and evolve. So, I'm of the opinion, like if these companies want to keep these things and want to keep them healthy, they owe more money to the people that created them, not the company that shepherded.
True.
Yeah.
That's my left wing stance for the day.
It's fair though. That's
fair.
You have to be fair to people. That's the thing.
It is fair. And like, should the Stoker family continue to be paid for Dracula? Yes, they should. Dracula is a public domain character, but it's from that family. Like that's how it should be.
See, that's the thing, though. That's how old now? Like hundreds of years. Like if that happens, you think about it. Most literature and music especially is created by building on other people's work.
Yes.
But you can't build on other people's work if it's all tied up in copyright in perpetuity, like for the rest of eternity.
Creators
you will
should be
get to a
paid.
point where you cannot like even put two notes together without somebody suing you.
Okay, this is where I get away from where I start to swear a little out of the left. I believe that creators should be paid for their work, despite, right? And like, I don't know if I like the idea of work being in the public domain, personally, right? I believe that the people who created it should have access and should be the ones in control of their characters in perpetuity. That makes me very different than the overwhelming majority of people, especially in the creative field. But I would not bother me if Charles Dickens's family were still in control of A Christmas Carol, right?
But at that point, which one? If he's got a thousand ancestors right now.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, who is the estate, right? There's people who control the estate. And it should be associated with the estate of Charles Dickens, right? And this is stuff that legality, maybe this stuff didn't benefit people who created in the 1800s, but it should be benefiting people who created in at least the latter half of the 20th century and beyond. Because the world is changing, because those were not, when those books are being written, there weren't billion-dollar companies that existed on the backs of them. That does change things. Like the people who wrote Happy Birthday is under copyright.
Yeah, I know.
I mean,
well, no, it just passed out of that.
Did it just pass out?
Yeah,
it should still be, right? If you created something that is part of the culture of society, you should be compensated that.
See, again, though, you'll get to a certain point within another 50 years when you can't string two notes together without getting sued by somebody. Like at that point, you're done. Like creativity goes out the window.
No, I don't know if I buy that, because like there's books that are written. There's infinite ways to sing a song, to play a song, and you could sit there and say, well, this is this and this is that, and all it is if it's successful, cut a check. This is what the legal system is based on. Cut a check. That's it. Share the wealth.
I don't know. I think it's going to take people like I'm on both sides of it and I have no idea which way to go. So it's going to take somebody way smarter than me to figure out how to make this work without, making it fair while allowing for our culture to continue to thrive and grow.
But our culture will continue to thrive and grow because these things do exist and you can take influence from something without owing people, right?
So
Star Wars, look at Star Wars. Like they tried to, everyone tried to sue George Lucas and he was upfront about his influences, but you can't be sued for your influences.
Right. Yeah. But I mean,
John, this is what the legal system does.
But John does have a point about music. Like, I don't know how much you know about music, but
not a thing.
So 1, 2, 4, 5, those chords are the chords that are used in the majority of the pop music that you have heard that has been recorded since the 80s. Mm-hmm. It does, whatever key, it's usually those 4 chords in the song. And it's just like, so do you go to the first band that did 1, 2, 4, 5?
But that's the thing is you only see these things go to court when it's either completely stupid or incredibly questionable.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it doesn't, that seems to be more of a slippery slope argument could that happen? Right. When there's no legal precedent for that happening, usually when it happens, it's like, I believe it was George Harrison's My Sweet Lord was like, I think it was My Boyfriend's Back, just like played slower. Like there was a big case over that in the 70s. Right. And they found in favor of
right. Or the Ghostbusters theme is actually I Want a New Drug by Huey Lewis and the News.
And that was because that was egregious. Like you've heard that, you went, oh yeah, that's that. Like, there's cases of it. Like Avril Lavigne had it in the mid aughts with I Don't Like Your Girlfriend, which was, it turned out she lifted the entire hook. Like if you do that and it's egregious, well then yeah, you owe, bust out that checkbook.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially when it's, the Ghostbusters theme was everywhere.
And it was only like 6 months later.
Yes.
Like that's one of the more ridiculously egregious examples.
Yes. So we'll see. I'm curious.
Vanilla Ice when he completely
ripped off.
That's Vanilla Ice, man. He added
Under Pressure.
Yeah. Under Pressure. When they added a little cymbal hit and the judge said, no, it's the same. It's a sample. But that case needs to happen because sampling had become so popular that there was like, okay, what is it? And because of that, there is this a legal precedent established.
But that was an extremely blatant rip. Like he ripped it off.
Well, he lied though. But it wasn't.
If like go onto YouTube, look.
Oh, I know.
Telling
It's the
you
same
just
song.
look for. There's a clip of Vanilla Ice trying to defend it and talking about that extra ding that he
Yeah.
added, and
That
it's
was-
hysterical because it's like.
But again, that had to happen because like so much of hip hop because Ice Baby is so successful, right? And because it was so lifted from Queen, and they weren't going to pay him anything. Of course, those guys are like, this is our song. Like now it established it. Yes, if you sample a song, you have to credit them as the writer,
Right.
which is the way it should be. Now, like,
Right.
and since then, there's been all kinds of samples, and hey, you just write them in because it's right.
Yeah.
You know, it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, no, I agree. But it'll be interesting to see how the Supreme Court
Very
rules
curious
on this.
With this particular court, super curious to see how this breaks down.
Yeah. So, all right. That is all the news. So we're going to take our final commercial break, and we'll be right back with our review of No Way Home.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
All right, we're back, and we have a movie to talk about, guys.
In the immortal words of Bruce Buffer, it's time for the main event.
All right, so before we get into it, let's talk statistics here. It made 260 million domestically, 340 million internationally, so 600.9 million worldwide. And rating wise, tomato meter from Rotten Tomatoes is 94%. So that's the critics score. Audience score is 99%. So
yeah, I mean that tracks.
That's 6% of critics have no joy in their lives.
Exactly, right?
They're the most miserable people you were ever going to meet.
So we also conducted a little poll of our own, and I said, "Have you seen Spider-Man: No Way Home yet? What did you think?" Results I was discussed on the next episode, and these were the choices I gave people. Right, best comic book movie. Best period comic book period movie period. Best MCU movie. It was okay, or it was awful.
Oh my God, who would ever? Okay, go for it.
So we actually got somebody answered it was awful. That got 1.3%. It was okay, got 28.7%. Best MCU got 34.7%, and the winner, best comic book movie, got 37.3% of the vote. So
the overwhelming majority thought it was either the best MCU or best comic book movie ever.
Correct.
So.
Some of the comments we got here, not my favorite Spider-Man movie or my favorite MCU movie, but they still managed to pull off a good movie despite the huge undertaking and expectations, and I appreciate where they took Peter in his journey. Timothy Jones said, I thought this was a masterpiece, one of MCU's best. I am climbing the walls of the theater with excitement.
Oh, ha ha.
That is a yes.
Sour Grapes, ladies and gentlemen, available in finer newspapers across the country.
The most Tim Jones tweet I've heard in a long time.
Jesse Camacho said, my personal favorite Spider-Man movie, but I still think I like Endgame more.
Endgame's the only one it didn't beat, right? I think.
Yeah, for money,
yes.
Opening weekend, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
D Square said it was enjoyable. Thanks for that, Don. And
coming on Omega Level Nerds this week to have a discussion of Don and why he is so lukewarm to this.
Yeah.
Persecute him to the fullest extent of my tongue.
Devlin Cox said, I feel like this poll goes to different extremes.
Well, yeah.
Either it is the greatest or it is mediocre. I thought it was very solid. Well, that's the whole point of it was okay. Like, there's your middle of the road. And the point of saying best comic book movie versus best MCU, because there are still people going to say, oh, Dark Knight was better. Choices are kind of odd. It's not the best MCU movie or superhero movie, but it's one of my top 3 MCU films. That's for sure.
That's fair.
That was Louis Schmerd.
Some people like those Snyderverse movies.
Some people do. Some people do.
People need
That's
some
fair.
help.
I mean, well, that's the thing. It's like, what is it? 71% of the people that responded say it was either best MCU or best comic movie. Like, that's an overwhelming majority.
Yeah.
So, we'll let it stick. But again, not everything is for everybody. Art's going to hit people in different ways. And, there's no accounting for good taste.
So let's go around the room like we always do, give our non-spoiler reactions to the movie before we really get into it. And we'll let John go first.
Dude, I was floored. I mean, we thought so much had been spoiled, through rumors and everything. And not really, no. I mean, like, yeah, certain things got spoiled, but the movie just had so much in it that you just, you couldn't be spoiled completely on this. So, yeah, this is hands down basically my favorite of all the Marvel movies. Poor Sony. And yeah, just one of my favorite movies of all time, really. It's and I love that it's, I don't know if this is a spoiler. It's a love letter to all of the Spider-Man movies.
Yes.
And we'll go into that later. So yeah, that's
JD.
I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I do think it's the best comic book movie ever made. And I love The Dark Knight. I think this was better because it was different, right? It's a different kind of movie than The Dark Knight. This is a movie that really felt like a comic book event, right? In the way they balanced so much. And this movie did, and I realized it's no second time around, is there were so many goals that this movie had. And it really felt like reading a comic where you get the different issues and, different people show up and you're able to balance out the different characters. And they're able to do that because the groundwork had been laid by eight previous films. So you're able to lean into that. And quite frankly, it made every Spider-Man movie count, right? Everything counts now. Like in this era we live of the reboot where everything is started from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
They made a very gutsy choice in saying we don't reboot, we're building on, much like a comic book, right? Because if you read different runs of a comic, it feels like completely different sometimes. But when you need it, that background stuff is there that you can pull from. So in that way, this movie feels more like reading comics. When I say comics, I'm like, following a run for years and years and years. This movie really feels like that more than any other movie. So in a way, it's the most comic accurate movie ever.
I like that. I will say I cried at least 3 or 4 times in this movie. And I was definitely shocked by some of the things that were in it. I will go on record to say for the longest time, Spider-Man 2 was my all-time favorite comic book movie. I think this has overtaken that just because I feel Spider-Man 2 was the best. It felt the most like Spider-Man, in my opinion. And I only have 2 issues with the movie, and we'll get into that. And it's just, one is kind of minor and one is kind of big. Well, but we'll get into that. But it's just, it's choices Marvel made, and, it's a comic book movie, so things probably aren't permanent. But
okay.
So, all right, there you go, people. Obviously, this movie is worth seeing. So if you haven't seen it yet, I don't know how, because I think everyone on the planet has seen it. Pause it, go watch it, come back for our spoiler-filled review. And if you have seen it, here we go. So they took one more day and made it come to life in a movie.
Yes. Not only I love that you said it, Dave, because you're exactly right. That's what this whole thing was. And this is like, I've advocated for a long time that comics should exist to be IP farms, right? And One More Day is definitely the most reviled story in Spider-Man history, right? There's not even a second. Yeah, the Clone Saga is probably the second closest, but this one, there's no fans. Like nobody likes one. But they took the concept of One More Day and made it better. They found a way to make it pliable. Like the stuff that One More Day dropped the ball on, they knocked it out of the park with it.
And they gave it a reason for happening. Like in the end, you're happy where you are, pretty much.
I don't know if you're happy, but I mean, like, so what I did, let's just do this. At the end of One More Day, the comic, we're supposed to be celebrating, but at the same time, there's this tremendous loss that's been felt, and we're supposed to ignore it. And like when they're doing, because One More Day ends with them doing the cheers, right? And this one, we feel the loss, right?
Right.
You feel the loss, and you're mourning it because Peter's mourning it, but trying to move on. Right. And it feels more real. Where the end of One More Day, it felt like a fuck you a little bit to people that had followed the books for a long time.
Right. And it's also the motivation in One More Day is questionable, where it's like the motivation for why Peter decided to do it in this, it makes a lot of sense. So
One More Day they just made One More Day make more sense after 15 years. Like
Took a while to figure it out.
Nick Spencer finally made One More Day.
Right. We talked about that. With
Yeah.
it's Mayday is who
Mephisto was trying to eliminate Spider-Girl from ever being born.
Right.
And it's like, oh, that makes sense. Like, there you go. There's a reason. Whereas for years, they're just like, yeah, he just wants the marriage for pain. And it's like, it doesn't make sense. Like, none of it made sense until later. But this, we talked about comics. Like, later writers come along and they tweak and improve. And this is what's nice about Feige. What Feige does is he's done this a few times now, is they take threads from comic book stories and take them and strip away the stuff that doesn't work and grow the stuff that does. We saw that with Civil War too.
Now, here's where we're getting into why the Marvel universe and the Marvel movies work so much better than anything else, specifically the Snyderverse or whatever, is because like you say, this whole thing's an IP farm, but it's also its own IP farm.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's turned everything else that before it into an IP farm. So we're going to talk about this, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are both in this. And so you don't have to sit there and retell a story or anything. And you're bringing in so much history and so much of, and people's feelings, like, people are attached to these stories, and, you get this instant gelling of emotion.
Right. Because the groundwork has already been laid.
So let's start with, so the movie starts off right where Far From Home ends, with that people finding out Peter Parker's Spider-Man and him being accused of killing Mysterio, and obviously all the stuff you would expect to happen. He gets picked up by the Department of not Homeland Security, Damage Control,
which is becoming bigger, right?
Yes, it is.
So he gets picked up by Damage Control. So does his friends and his aunt, and there's a whole, like, they don't have any evidence, so they can't hold him. They release him, but he does hire a lawyer anyway, and that is our first surprise.
Jesus H. Christopher, like,
you need to lawyer up. What a great that thing was real. That thing that was floating around the internet, that picture.
Yeah,
that was.
We all thought it was photoshopped, and it was. Why can't I think of the actor's name?
Charlie Cox.
Charlie
Cox returning as Matt Murdock. Obviously Daredevil.
Not just Matt Murdock, but somebody throws a brick through the window and he catches it before Peter with his spider sense can
My
catch
favorite
it.
line in the whole movie.
Like,
how'd you do that? I'm a really good lawyer.
It's awesome. Like, so he's definitely Daredevil. He's definitely most likely the same Daredevil from the Netflix, or at least like the closest thing to it for that universe.
100%. Like Daredevil. That I'm thinking they're going to bring just Daredevil in wholesale, right? Especially with what we're talking about Hawkeye.
I was about to say, here's the problem. You haven't watched Hawkeye.
I have not watched Hawkeye.
Yes, but the big thing, right?
It's Kingpin, right?
Yeah, they revealed already. He's going to be in the finale. They just showed a picture of him in the last episode. So yeah, it is Kingpin and it is D'Onofrio. So it's like they're back. They're both back. Like they're in the MCU. Like, yes.
Yeah.
So
because why fix what's not broken? And that's what I loved about this movie. Why fix what isn't broken? Right? Too often stuff gets thrown away in these movies, right? It was like, here's something like I want to jump ahead a little bit. Like we all thought about, well, when is Peter going to meet Mary Jane? When's this Peter going to have his Green Goblin? Didn't need it because they were already there.
Can we just say William Dafoe was brilliant in this movie?
Yes.
Yeah.
He hasn't lost a step.
No, not even
He's
close.
Really good. What I loved about, and I always wondered this, is why did they put Willem Dafoe behind that stupid mask when his face does it perfectly? And one of the first things they do is they break the mask and then they put him in the Goblin gear, right? They basically put him in the homeless version of the Goblin gear, and then his face gets to just be the Green Goblin face for the rest of the movie. And here's what's amazing: he's the freaking villain of the movie, and we didn't even know he was in it. We suspected it, but he's the villain.
They showed Doc Ock, and you think he's going to be the main baddie, and it's Green Goblin.
Oh, but he was also very good.
Oh, he's great. It's Alfred Molina. He's great.
Yeah.
Alfred Molina. But they complete the character arc, right?
Yes.
They completed it. It's genius. But I mean, I love. Well, we're all over the place. I can't help it. But I love that no matter what universe, Spider-Man's ultimate villain will always be Norman Osborn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Always. And it was perfect. It was freaking perfect.
Isn't it nice that Andrew Garfield got his third movie?
Isn't it nice that Andrew Garfield got his redemption? And Andrew Garfield,
I was going to
so
say
good in this.
That was one of the parts where you cried, right?
Yes.
Yes, when he saves MJ. Yeah.
Mhm.
And he's
he's
crying.
crying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he did it. He redeemed his greatest mistake and didn't let it happen again. And he just Andrew Garfield is so good in this movie. And it's the shame of the Amazing Spider-Man movies. They never quite, other than the Gwen Peters stuff, they didn't quite make it work.
Right.
Right. But this, guys, I'll be honest with you, after this movie, I want to see another Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movie.
You know, there's a rumor floating around that they're going to do Amazing Spider-Man 3 now.
They should. This is the beauty of this now, is this door has been opened. They could make a Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. They could make an Andrew Garfield Spider-Man.
Well,
it doesn't affect.
I will say that
they could bring him in for another Spider-Verse or one of the future Spider-Man movies. You know, like
I will say this: the only thing I feel they missed that they could have done, but they would have had to bring more actors in to make it work. I think is showing when they went back what their worlds were like. Toby and Andrew's Spider-Man worlds.
I get it, but there was so much weight in that scene that I think that would have taken away from what's going on with our Peter, Tom Holland's Peter.
Yeah.
Right? Because we needed those consequences for his decision. Right?
Yeah.
Which we didn't feel in one day. And one more day, you're supposed to feel like the Peter, they sold their marriage to the devil. Everything is great. And it's like, that's how it ends. Like, it's so bizarre. With this one, it's so somber. Right?
Right. So since we are on a time crunch, I want to talk about my one issue. It's the same issue I had with One More Day.
Huh?
There's no explanation on like, oh, everyone's memory's wiped. But wait, what about, you know, the Avengers and all the stuff Spider-Man and Peter did with the Avengers?
But it's magic.
And also, that's my problem. When they asked the writers about it One More Day, that's what they did. They just said, "Oh, it's magic."
Magic doesn't matter. That's one of the worst answers in the history of like comics.
Oh, I know, because it bothers me. It's like, oh, so that also wipes.
And hold on.
Like, all the pictures of
they
him,
even give a hint. They even give a hint that MJ remembers
the
Peter
Black Dahlia
because she's wearing the
Black Dahlia,
the Black Dahlia amulet at the end of the movie.
Yep. I think it's one of those because again, after One More Day, they did better job of explaining how this thing works. They remember Spider-Man. Right, everyone remembers Spider-Man. They just don't remember Peter. Right, and all that stuff from him is gone. Right, and that was the if you read the decade of Spider-Man books after, they did peel back one by one, where he would have to get people to remember who he was. And those those are some good stories, actually.
Yeah, but that's the whole thing. Like the entire world doesn't know who Peter Parker is.
Right.
Like, you notice.
That's why
you notice at the end
he
had to get a GED because he didn't go back to high school.
Did he even still have a social security number? I mean, like, there's questions here.
There's a lot of questions. Like, and how's he affording that apartment? You know, like,
of course, he doesn't know where all the criminals are, so he could easily get a new social security number.
Stark left him money, right?
Yeah,
but no one remembers.
But no one remembers. But that's the whole.
If no one remembers who you are, it doesn't necessarily mean your identity is erased. Right, that's the difference.
Yeah, I guess I wish I had a better explanation of.
Then how does the magic know whether to erase a picture of Peter Parker or a picture of Peter Parker that was taken because he was Spider-Man?
The quest is that no one remembers that Peter Parker is Spider-Man.
And
right,
I'm sorry, Ned and Peter or MJ and Peter didn't have any pictures together on their phones. Like, were those pictures erased?
Well, now there is a slight explanation for that, and if you think back, you'll start to see it. Every time something big happened, like the party at the first girlfriend's house or whatever, Peter was always running from that to go to do something. So like he literally was making not much of a footprint already in the bigger events of their lives because he was always taking off.
But he was also friends with Ned before he became Spider-Man.
There is a description there in the One More Day, the post One More Day, Brand New Day books. There is a thing saying there's a block where that stuff does exist, but the spell doesn't let people remember it.
Okay.
Right. Like
it's like a perception filter or something.
It's exactly how they describe it. It's a perception filter. So you can see the
Doctor Who thing, actually.
Yeah, it's very much. You see the picture of them, but your brain isn't registering who that is.
Yeah.
And that's how they do it. And it is a magic mind wipe thing. But again, this is they make it work, and I imagine in the next one we'll get it. And what I find interesting is like because of that is like these movies have taken some criticism for being the least comic accurate interpretations of Spider-Man, right? Because the MCU Spider-Man is very different than the comic Spider-Man in a lot of ways. But at the end of it, it's 100% the set night that John Romita Spider-Man.
So that's the other thing.
Oh,
I liked that because he's got the apartment and he has the most comic accurate Spider-Man suit
at the end. Oh yeah, the brighter blue.
Mm-hmm. And then he's just swinging through Queens, right? With no one knowing who he is. So we're closer to the traditional Spider-Man.
And then that was my only other issue, and it's, we'll see where it goes, but like killing off Aunt May, making her give him his Uncle Ben moment, and it's like I assumed he had his Uncle Ben moment. We just never saw it.
So I think we all made that assumption, but perhaps maybe he didn't. Did he even have an Uncle Ben in this universe?
Yes, because
has that been talked about?
He mentioned it.
The suitcase he has when he's going on vacation, it says Ben Parker on it, and I didn't
even remember that. Okay,
yeah.
So he did have an Uncle Ben, and perhaps they did have that moment. Perhaps that's where May got that line from.
Right.
We just never saw it. I mean, just because we never saw it. And like when when Tobey Maguire Peter says Uncle Ben, like it registers. You're right, because it does register with Peter, right? But he got that moment with Tony Stark too. So he's actually gotten it potentially 3 times now.
Yes. And they did point out a couple times have pointed out this time it was the comic accurate line.
Yes.
With great power must also come great responsibility. That's
because Stan Lee was getting paid by the word,
Yes. So yeah, that was pointed out. Is that hot, JD?
Yeah.
JD was just handed food.
We're on a time crunch. He's only got half an hour left, so he has to eat. But now he can't speak, which is not a good thing.
For a podcast, no.
Okay.
So there might, so unfortunately we lost May.
Yeah, which I'm really sad about. That hurt.
Melissa Torme,
Marissa.
It's not just because of Marissa Torme. It's the fact that
Marissa Tomei.
Yeah, Marissa, sorry.
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah, it's not just Marissa Torme, because I like her acting. I like her, and I, it's just it's like somebody else said. I shouldn't really watch so many reviews after seeing it myself, but like if you think about it, in the end, this is putting Peter Parker back into the same situation as the other Peter Parkers where nothing goes right ever. And that's not the kind of Spider-Man I ever wanted to see. I understand,
but that is Spider-Man.
But that's the thing. Like,
Spider-Man.
What's the point of watching a movie about a guy who's going to get worse with every movie?
I think
there's no uplift for it. There's no reason for it to be a hero movie. It's literally just getting your Schadenfreude on.
No.
I'm looking to see something.
But
I've heard people who don't like Tom Holland have now come out and said he's now earned being Spider-Man because of this movie, because of the heartache. So
because that's a big part of who Spider-Man is, right?
Right.
Is the overcoming.
Like at the end, he's ready to tell MJ, like, I'm Peter and I love you, and
he doesn't because
she brushes her hair back. He sees the Band-Aid and he's like, just like the Peters in the other movies.
You're better off without me.
They're better off without me, yeah.
And that's part of Spider-Man, right? Is that because Spider-Man is a character who's down to the dumps, right? He is very much a woe is me character. And because Peter Parker was that. Being Spider-Man is what pushes him not to be that. Right. So like having a little bit of tragedy is it's good for the character. And it also puts us into a different situation. Because again, I do think he's going to try to make MJ fall in love with him again. Because because they're destined to be together. Right. And it's going to be a good story, but he has to earn it back.
Well, this goes back to, you were saying like there's that perception filter, but she's got the Black Dahlia. And you gotta remember this version of MJ is freaking smart as hell. She'll like, just from that one interaction alone at the end, she's going to be thinking, why do I feel this way when I look at this guy? Why am I holding this Black Dahlia thing? Where did that come from? She might track him down.
She may try to figure it out. Like she might try to figure out who this person is in these photos. Right.
Yeah.
There's going to be a story. Like that's going to be the next story is where do we go from here? And so it's like, it opens up a whole world of narrative possibilities right now. Similar to One More Day, because there was all those stories about Johnny Storm needing to remember, about Mary Jane needing to remember. Then it's like, now you get all these reconnections. And when you get the moment where the three of them come back together, you're going to feel it.
Well, that's another question, because like with the rumor is the next 3 movies obviously is Peter in college. And so the question becomes, does he go to MIT?
No, he goes to Empire State.
Yeah, because he does in the comics.
Well, he also didn't Mr. Fantastic bring him into like a program or something? Wasn't
Later
he?
on.
Yeah,
later on.
Later on. Not the traditional Spider-Man, the Ramita Spider-Man, if you will. Empire State University.
And just to backtrack just a second, there was a lot of people saying that, well, now they can bring in Zendaya and what's his face, anytime they want, if they want to bring them back into another movie in the future. I'm like, nah, the next Spider-Man movie has to have them back, coming back. It has to be at least partially about them coming back, because I can't see anybody. I can't see them not doing that.
They'll do it. They'll bring it because it's complicated. What they'll do is this is what they should do. They never did really in the original Spider-Man movies, any of them. Now we need Black Cat.
Well, they always had it in the background, but
and then it makes it complicated.
Now you bring in Felicia to make it complicated because Felicia loves Spider-Man, not Peter.
Not Peter, exactly.
And now you have MJ,
and MJ
who
loves Peter,
and
not
now you
Spider-Man.
That's the next story. That's the next step. Is now, and then you put the onus on Peter to be like, well, where am I better off? Am I better off just being Spider-Man or being Peter? Right. And there's a balancing act, and that's classic Spider-Man.
And they planted the seed, right? Because they said the question in the movie, does she love you because you're Spider-Man or not? Mm-hmm. And I think they planted the seed. They also planted another seed about, best friends becoming villains and turning on Spider-Man.
Because Ned. Right?
Because of Ned. And then they also established that Ned can do magic in this. So
that's right. Because the only reason, well, wait a minute. So does that still mean that Doctor Strange knows that Ned can do magic? Because if he still does, he's going to come find him and say, hey, it's time for training, dude. Like,
Ned forgot.
If he forgot, that opens the door for Ned to go on to become evil or something, for things to happen.
Let me throw this at you. Why is Ned Leeds? What is Ned Leeds' most famous attribute in the comics?
I don't know.
Besides being Hobgoblin?
He was not Hobgoblin.
He was what?
He was everyone thought he was Hobgoblin.
Yes. Everyone thought he was Hobgoblin.
There you go. Now we have that. That kind of sets that up too.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So he's going to become Hobgoblin? Is that a thing?
That's in the comics. In the comics, he's framed as Hobgoblin.
Yes.
And when he dies, the world believes he is Hobgoblin until Roderick Kingsley shows up again.
That's right. That's right. I forgot. And that's funny because that's one of the main stories from when I was heavily collecting.
Oh, it's the Roger Stern. The Roger Stern stuff's the best. Yeah. Well, that's the thing too. Is all the Goblin stuff stayed. Willem Dafoe goes back. His Goblin Glider didn't go back.
Oh my goodness. You're right.
Now you got the Hobgoblin origin.
Oh,
now Peter can have his Now this Peter can have his Goblin.
Well, you also have the Clintar, right? The Venom.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
they're called the Clintars, right?
Symbiotes is what I always call them.
Yeah, they tried to give them a name, but they're just symbiotes.
They're symbiotes.
Well, but the thing is like.
So
we're gonna talk about
they're Clintars, right? So,
you want to talk about that after credit scene?
Why was he there?
Okay.
See, you didn't see Maximum Carnage.
Right.
At the end of Maximum Carnage, he's sitting in a hotel room.
We talked about that. But how the Peter thing is they brought in people who knew Peter was Spider-Man.
The Clintars, the Clintars are a hive mind race, but their hive mind goes across universes.
All right,
so all the Clintars know who Spider-Man is because one of them
knew it.
So he was brought in there.
Oh, you know what? Okay, I'll allow it. And they actually hinted at it too. And he said, "I fought an alien." Okay. I tip my cap to you, sir. That makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that's why they threw that in about the Topher Grace fan.
Which was a much simpler explanation than what everybody else was thinking. But that means that you're not, that means that, okay, so this gets really complicated because that Venom is not going to be part of the MCU. He's still part of his own universe. But they left the symbiote, left the little symbiote baby. So now we're going to have Venom. But Morbius is in the MCU. He is because he's talked.
Walter's in the movie,
right?
Right. Even though,
and he's made mention of other things that are in part of the MCU, not part of Venom.
So. But even though in the trailer he passes a picture of the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man that says murderer on it, so I don't know.
It's going to be really complicated. Who knows?
Because I think everyone wanted to see Tom Hardy and Tom Holland, though, go up against each other. Like they felt like they were setting up. Yeah.
We still might.
We don't know what's going to happen in Multiverse of Madness.
Because again, also in the trailer for the new Morbius trailer, he says, "They go, who are you?" He goes, "Venom." I'm kidding. I'm Dr. Morbius. Like, so there is a Venom in the MCU then.
Yeah.
So is Tom Hardy actually in that universe? I don't know. I really don't know. A variant, if you will.
Maybe we're off and Morbius gets transported to the MCU or something, because like you said, if you've got a picture, if he's talking about Venom already, the Venom in MCU isn't established yet. He's only a little bitty thing.
Hold on. Let's not forget this. Venom is controlled by Sony as part of the Spider-Man universes.
Right.
So the quote unquote MCU will only get to play in the Spider-Man version of the MCU, or when they bring Spider-Man into an eventual Avengers-esque movie. So maybe we see Venom. Maybe that's just a tease for something that doesn't come. I don't know. It's intriguing. Were you guys, the second time I saw it, I was staring at the sky when everyone was coming through.
Oh yeah, to see everything that was. Yeah.
I saw
Scorpion. I
didn't see Scorpion. I saw Craven.
I thought I saw Craven too, and the rhinoceros, the
rhino.
Yeah, the rhino. Yeah,
rhino. And
I saw Rhino.
What else was there? There was something else that I saw. I wasn't sure about. Shoot.
Should we also discuss the plot holes?
I never pick up, which is bad for a writer, but I never pick up.
That's the thing, though. This one I didn't pick up on too many plot holes. Like normally, I'm sitting there and it'll hit me.
Electro never learned Spider-Man's identity.
That's true.
Oh well, that was and he looks much better. There was no explanation, but it could.
Well, I don't care. Jamie Foxx wasn't coming back if he looked like that.
Yeah, right.
So he looks different in this universe because whatever, it doesn't matter. I agree. That's they should have said that anyone who died, or I thought they made it very confusing. Was it because originally it was people who died at Spider-Man's hand?
Right, that's what it felt like. Yeah.
But then Lizard never died.
Then died. Right.
Neither did Sandman. I don't think. Did Sandman die?
No, Sandman didn't die.
Yeah. So
they let him go at the end.
And why didn't Topher Grace come in?
Right.
Because he died, right? Or he didn't die, or did he? The Topher Grace Eddie Brock?
What's he do? He puts him surrounds him in the bars and plays the thing, and then he's going crazy and he throws a bomb at him. So we don't know if he died or not.
But it couldn't be all of them, right? It's just like these were the guys.
Maybe Topher Grace didn't want to do it.
Well, these were the guys that just slipped through the cracks stuff.
That's true. And these were also the guys that's true. They slipped through the cracks, and these are the ones they found. There could have been ones they didn't find either.
Right. Well, like Venom. Venom was there. They never found him.
Maybe they
hanging out in a bar.
That's true.
And that's the thing. Maybe they want to stick with Tom Holland in people's mind as Venom and not bring Topher Grace.
Gwen Stacy could have been hanging out somewhere.
So that was also an interesting choice for Sandman with Flint Marko to keep him as Sand the entire time until the very end.
Is that because the actor's really old, or doesn't?
That was kind of my thought. It's because Thomas Hayden Church doesn't look quite like Thomas Hayden Church anymore, and it might have been easier just to keep him as Sand the whole time.
Well, the guy who plays the Lizard,
my God. Well, that's what he looked like.
Yeah, but you only got a few glimpses of him, right?
Right.
Like,
you only see Thomas Hayden Church like he's sitting down. He's kind of just see his face at the end.
Yeah. So some of these actors may have just been CG'd in because they had like other things that
they definitely de-aged. They definitely de-aged. Yeah, and
Alfred Molina.
Alfred Molina, and
he had a bad wig on.
And William Dafoe.
Alfred Molina had a really bad wig on, but they also de-aged him. And he looked.
William Dafoe is 62, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And did you know he only agreed to come back if he could do most of his own stunts?
No.
Yeah, he did. He did.
What a madman! I love him.
Yes.
He's
awesome.
He's great in this movie.
He is.
I like how the J.K. Simmons, the Daily Bugle, is only popular now because he made his bones off of Spider-Man being Peter Parker, and now that nobody knows it, now he's sitting there railing just against Spider-Man. But he went from his basement with a green screen behind him, and the whole
there's great character growth, great growth in him, and that. And I love how he's hawking the supplements. So you get a little shot at Alex Jones in there.
Yeah,
I'm like, that's good stuff. That's funny.
Yeah. I kind of wanted like a scene though when Toby went back with him wearing the toupee.
I like that he didn't have the toupee, that he was bald in this one, because it made him. It was a different version of him.
Yeah.
So we got that visual separation. Excuse me. That was really great. I'm really happy too that all the Spider-Man wound up having different costumes. I know this wasn't planned on it, but it all made for us to be able to tell who was who at the end of this movie.
Well, mostly.
Yeah.
I mean,
Really
some
cool.
of the action was okay. What was the reaction in the theaters for you guys when the Spider-Man came through the first portal and it was
Andrew Garfield?
Yeah.
Thunderous applause both times.
Yes.
And
yeah.
the first time I picked up on it before everybody else. I the whole time I'm in the show, I'm saying they're not coming back. They're not coming back. I subscribe to the MJ philosophy. If you expect disappointment, you're never disappointed. So I did not want to let myself believe this was possible.
Mhm.
And then when I saw the eyes, the Bagley eyes,
Yep.
that's when I was like, it's him. It's Andrew Garfield. So I clapped before everyone else did in the theater. And then when everybody else realized it was, we had a thunderous applause. The second time I didn't clap at all because I was listening to the crowd because my kid didn't get it. He never saw The Amazing Spider-Man.
Right.
So for him, I told him, oh, it's like Spider-Verse. You get all the different Spider-Man. And he was like, oh, it's like Spider-Verse. Okay. But yeah, my theater the second time around, I heard audible gasps when he came through.
That's what I got gasped. And just as a quick aside, like they did a pitch meeting. Screen Rant did a pitch meeting for this, and this makes sense. One of the things they did was the guy's pitching to the executive. He's like, Andrew Garfield's in it, and the executive is like, okay. He's like, no, I'm not getting a reaction. You got to go watch all these movies. And then it flips to 11 hours and 47 minutes later. And now he's like, and then the executive's like, oh yes, he's from the other movie I just saw. So, it's like, there are some people in the theater. I went on a Friday afternoon. There were some people in the theater that were like, oh, yay. But then there were a couple of them that were gasps. I live in a very rural area. There were a couple of people that gasped, and then there was a lot of applause. But, there were still some people there that were so young, they hadn't seen the first two trilogies.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same. My kid was one of them. He only knows the Tom Holland Spider-Man, and now I can show him these ones, and he's got to touch them because again, it all counts. Like I'm so happy they never recycled villains after all.
Yeah,
right. Like I know that was I know it was inadvertent at the time, but it wound up making this so much better.
Yeah,
yeah.
Because it would have been weird with two Doc Ocks, right?
Would have been. So here's a question for you guys that my buddy on Twitter, Tony Bell, sent me this. Does this movie confirm that the Spider-Verse Peter B. Parker was Tobey Maguire? Because Murray goes, do you have an MJ? Yeah, MJ and I were together. It's complicated. It was rough, but we're together, right? Because that was always speculation, was Peter B. Parker from Spider-Verse was Tobey Maguire. Does this movie kind of tie that up? Because he talked about the difficulty with his relationship with MJ, but they're back together.
What's the Peter B. Parker thing?
From Peter B. Parker. That was the Peter Parker from Spider-Verse. The one that got dumped by MJ.
Peter Ben Parker.
Peter Benjamin Parker. Yeah, that was his full name, but that's how they identify him in Spider-Verse. Is he's tagged as Peter B. Parker.
He's the one that
fat one, the fat Spider-Man.
Oh.
That Tobey Maguire is the fat Spider-Man. This is him. This is him. I got a couple things on this because like he's not fat anymore because he's back together with MJ, and he's also the one who accepts being in a different universe. Much because Andrew Garfield's like, this is crazy, and Tobey Maguire's kind of like, yep, I'm looking for your friend. I'm trying to make like he's like much more grounded into this because he's done it before.
And the back pain, right?
And the back pain, which is a great scene, by the way.
Yeah.
The back pain too. I forgot about that. The back pain.
Oh wait, no, it can't be because he has the organic web shooters and the other one didn't.
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah. Which was so fun to see them all. You've got organic. How does it even work? Where does it come out of besides it? Like all the questions that all of us,
all the fans have. Yeah. He's like, I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, between just having them sit, like that's what I love. Like most of this stuff, like take the Ghostbusters from a couple of years back, right? It was like they had the original Ghostbusters, but it was just sight gag and you're gone and whatever. This one they were part of the show. They were part of the actual plot. They had a huge effect. They were first class citizens in this movie. Main
brothers.
Characters. Yeah, brothers.
They're brothers. I love that line. They're brothers.
It gave them time to it gave them time to riff on each other, to talk to each other, to build out their differences. And then they gave us that one thing where they're all sitting there doing their science thing. And Ned goes, "Hey, Peter," and they're like, which one? And they're doing the whole mean point thing at each other.
Like, they did. That's great. That was great.
And I love when he's like, Peter Parker. It's like, yeah, we're all Peter Parker.
That quite doesn't help. Is that it? We're me.
Andrew Garfield got his redemption moment, right? When he saves MJ.
Yeah.
And Tom Holland is ready to kill the Green Goblin. Right, he's going to impale Green Goblin. How does Green Goblin die? Got to be impaled. He is going to impale him with the Goblin Glider. And who stops him? Tobey Maguire.
Tobey Maguire. Yep.
The grounded, the adult Spider-Man, the one who's been through it, the one he needs, like the older brother saying, "Don't do this."
It's weird too because
there's a plot hole too because so neither one of their spider senses detected that the Green Goblin was going to stab them.
They've had it before where you're super distracted, right?
Yeah.
And especially Tobey Maguire's, which is prone to his own anxiety to not working.
So the whole thing is that scene is like there's a shortcut, right? It's just the looks in their eyes. They're not saying anything to each other.
The acting is so good in this movie,
and that's the whole thing. They're just like Toby's giving him a look like, "Don't do this. You don't want to do this," And it's like it's so good, but like. It goes back to my question that I say every time one of these movies comes out. Like, does this movie work if you've not seen the other Spider-Man movies?
No, it doesn't.
By design. It doesn't by design. Like this is a movie that makes you appreciate the other. Spider-Verse does, because Spider-Verse lives on its own. This is a movie that could do what Spider-Verse couldn't, right? It's not Spider-Man. It's not Spider-Man 3. It's Spider-Man 8.
Right.
Right. Like this movie is Spider-Man 8. By design,
which is
I think
fine.
that's what makes it great. Yeah, no. Not only does it make fine, it makes it great, right? There's never been a movie that did this before. Because we've never seen a Batman movie that ties in multiple continuities. We might, and now DC might be in trouble because Marvel beat them to the punch again. But this time, this movie relies on everything that's come before it, and again, that's what makes it like comics.
And they're not just relying on it; they're paying homage.
They're embracing it,
right?
Yeah, they're embracing it. They're like, yes, this is what we are.
We love you. We give you back to the fans. Here you are.
We have these 8 other Spider-Man movies, 9, because they hit that Miles exists somewhere. Like we have all these other Spider-Man movies that you love, and we love them too. And here's why: we're not ashamed about the old movies we made. Like they make fun of the mistakes they made fun of Max Dillon's character. Like they're saying, like Jay Buck's like, I look great, because they admitted that in the last one it was stupid. Right?
Yeah.
They embrace it. They steer into it and they said, "Oh, here it is. Yes, this is what we did." It's so gutsy for Feige to be so comfortable in himself to say, "No, I'm not going to push away what came before us. We're going to talk about why it was awesome."
And you keep saying that the acting was so good, and it's because this is what happens when you get good writers, a good director. You let them be fans. They're not just writers. They're fans of comic books that are writing this, and you let the whole thing breathe. I mean, this thing was 2.5 hours, right?
Yeah, it doesn't feel that.
It didn't
every minute of it. All. Every minute of it is like it never feels long. It never feels slow. It felt like a trade paperback, right? Like, because when you're reading them monthly, like there's like breaks in this that feel like issues. And then you go to the next issue and it feels like it's a new story has started, but you're continuing the same arc. I love this is definitely a movie made by people that not only love comics, but love comic book movies, specifically Spider-Man. This is a movie for people that love Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And I love Spider-Man and I love these movies. Even the bad stuff I've enjoyed, right? Like this is, and it redeems all of them.
It does.
It redeems all the Spider movies.
Can I just say there was one other scene in this that was like one of the best, oh God, P word. It's the best showing of Spider-Man's spider sense was
Peter Tingle.
When he walked into the room and the goblin was about to betray him.
That is just yes.
Wasn't that amazing?
Here's what's cool about that scene. I did Take a Knee last time. We talked about this too. And this is Film Dork JD comes up. In the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, they use the old Hitchcock trick of the zoom in, pull out to do the spider sense. Yeah. Right. And they didn't do that in the Tom Holland movies or in the Andrew Garfield movies to do his spider sense. But they did it here. Right. Is he's trying to figure out what's going on. And they do the zoom in, pull out to have the main villain of the Sam Raimi movies turn on him. Like, it's a great way to portray the spider sense. It's a great way to tie back into the original movies when the Green Goblin is back. I loved everything about that sequence. It's so good.
But it still shows that his spider sense is still evolving. Like he's still getting better at it. And like we will get the way of the spider at some point. Like, hey, actually, Danny Rand's supposed to help teach him the way of the spider, isn't
in
he?
the comics, not Danny Rand. It's Shang-Chi.
Oh, Shang-Chi. Right. So Shang-Chi's gonna perfect.
All right. Well,
we got all the
guys,
players.
we have about 10 minutes left.
Yeah.
So let's real quick go around and give our final thoughts and our rating. 1 out of 10 organic web shooters. And John, you can go first.
No, this is a hard 10. I mean, it hits your nostalgia bone. It hits you in the heart so many different ways. It's a love letter to you as a fan. The acting was amazing. You could tell that like Andrew Garfield and oh my God,
Tobey Maguire.
They were having fun, with this. Like, I don't know, everything was just perfect, and I know I'm usually a stickler for plot holes and stuff, but yeah, I'll give them a pass on this one. It's just too good. So and the fact that they're going to make 3 more, I mean, they've got my, it's like that old meme, here, take my money, So yeah, I am really glad that Tom Holland made it to number 3, and that Garfield got his number 3 basically. And I don't know. I don't know what else to say about this, it's, and we've got this, I can't wait to see where they go from here, because now we've got Spider-Man right where you normally find him, like alone in a broken down apartment and just, dealing with life now. It's going to be interesting. So yeah, 10. I don't know what else to say.
Okay. JD?
I love this movie. The plot hole stuff rarely bothers me because I'm a firm believer that character trumps all. Good characters will trump all mechanics. And this is a movie full of great characters and great character moments. And it's a movie that is built on the backs of 20 years of filmmaking, right?
Yeah.
The seeds of this movie were laid in 2002 with the original Spider-Man movie. And I'm just disappointed they couldn't work Nicholas Hammond somewhere into there. I love it. I love the characters. I love what they did. I like the choices. I like how fundamentally ground in the universe it feels. And I like that at the end of it, like John said, we get back to the more traditional Spider-Man, which I didn't see coming. And I'm very curious to see what's next, because I don't know coming out of this. And I loved everything about it. It's a good 8.5. No, I'm totally kidding. It's a 10.
Oh God. It's a good 8.5.
I gotcha.
All right. Well, I'm going to say that I love the nostalgia aspect of it, but this movie can work without that too, to a point, because it's still a story that furthers Tom Holland's Spider-Man and furthers the MCU. It's not just nostalgia for nostalgia's sake kind of a movie, So like we said with the Ghostbusters, like that was definitely a movie that furthered the story. Yeah. So, I mean, I loved it. I loved the inclusion of Daredevil and, and just all the actors were great. And yeah, I'm going to give it a solid 5. Oh, I'm sorry. A 10.
I did that joke.
I know, but I did it better. All right. So obviously, yes, we all love this movie. Probably our top movie of the year.
Yeah.
So yeah. All right. So let's wrap it up with some recommendations for our audience. JD, you got anything?
Spider-Man. There's nothing else to talk. This dominates everything. Go see Spider-Man, and then when that's done, revisit the old ones.
Okay, John.
I say Spider-Man, and go see Green Arrow. Go see Green Arrow. Yeah, that's right.
You could do that.
Go see Hawkeye. Hawkeye is. I still think it's just a fun ride.
Oh, I can't wait for the final episode because I think it's going to somehow tie into this.
I know, right?
Oh my God!
You're gonna see Spider-Man swinging in the background or something.
I think so. Something. It's going to be something.
So. Or we're gonna meet Daredevil. I mean, Matt Murdock as he's coming out of Aunt May's apartment building. I don't know. It's gonna be interesting. So yeah, but yeah, those two. This is it's Christmas. You got time. Everybody's off. Go have some fun. Watch these things.
Okay. Well, I will recommend that you go to superheroespeak.com where you can find the podcast every week. So links to all our social media at the top of the page, and of course, comic book reviews by our good friend D Square. I'm gonna say it. Yeah, I recommend go back and watch all the old Spider-Man movies and You know what? It's Christmas, boys and girls. Go spend time with your family. That's my biggest recommendation.
Oh God, don't do that. No.
If you like your family, not like John. So, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. So on that note, as always, thanks for listening. Don't let your cape get caught in the door. Have a good Christmas vacation.